Hey everybody, Eric Grenier here with Philippe J. Fournier for this week's episode of The Numbers. Philippe, it was a rough start for the Canadians in that first round.
Don't tell me I recorded it. I'll watch it later. Maybe I'll watch it later, but we'll see how it goes. It's a long series. It's all right. It's just like this. I mean, it's like right now for the Conservatives, there's a majority government. They have time to settle in and to strategize for the next round. But yeah, it's a long series. It's all good.
Are you suggesting that people are wondering whether they should change the captain of the Canadians or they could stick with Suzuki for the rest of the series? Is this what you're suggesting?
I guess we'll see. But more seriously, though, it's been a strange time in the polls because, well, there's been fewer of them in the past week. And also there's like a strong consensus now on where the numbers lie. And so I don't know where you want to start today. Usually we start with the federal numbers. We had a rare Léger poll published on Friday, so the day after our next episode. So do you want to start there, Eric?
Yeah, I think so. Like, there hasn't been a lot of big news over the last week, at least in our kind of world. The polls that we just had the two tracker polls, and we had the Léger survey, as you mentioned. We also had some fundraising numbers, which I think tell part of the story. And we can get to that in a little bit, but I do want to, let's start with the Léger poll, especially because we usually pay a lot of attention to those Léger numbers when they come out. And they are kind of interesting, right? Because we have seen a number of polls now over the last few weeks where the Liberals are somewhere around 45, and the Conservatives are usually somewhere around 33, let's say, and the NDP maybe around 9 to 10. But then we have Léger come out, has a 48 for the Liberals, has a 37 for the Conservatives, and just 6 for the NDP. And those are all kind of, I'd say, at the higher end or the lower end of the current ranges.
That's right.
Which I think brings up some interesting discussions, because it does bring up, are the Liberals that high that they are at a 48, which is just a remarkable number?
Yeah.
Are the Conservatives actually not so much in trouble, because a 37 is still pretty good? They've won elections with less support in the past. And then we have the NDP. There would have been some discussion about whether Avi Lewis had picked them up a little bit off the floor, but this put them right back down on the floor. So how are you interpreting these numbers?
Okay, so the last time Léger was on the field, you may remember, because we had discussions with people at Léger, it was the weekend of the NDP leadership in late March. And so the first Léger poll with Avi Lewis officially as a candidate was this one, and there was no change. 6% across the country, which matches the score of the April 2025 election. And you look at the regionals, 10% in Atlantic Canada, 4% in Quebec, 7% in Ontario, 10% in BC. I had a little fun modeling just this poll, and I came up with 0 NDP seats. Now, obviously, you have to trust the average. We have the Nanos tracker has the NDP in low double digits, so a slight improvement from last year. But and I'm not sure if you wanted to start with the NDP here, but that's what struck me here. The Liberals at 48, it's about where the Léger has seen the Liberals in like 6 or 8 months. The Conservatives at 37, it's 3 points more than last time. It was 34 in the last Léger poll, so maybe a regression to the mean. 37 feels more normal than 34. But it's that 6% for the NDP that changes so much of the dynamics. That the Conservatives, you just said, they won elections with fewer than 30% of the vote. They can't win if the NDP still is on the floor at 6%. And that's what I guess that struck me most about this poll. There's no Avi Lewis bump according to Léger.
Yeah, and you look at some of the numbers sticking with the NDP in the Léger poll. 12% among 18 to 34-year-olds. When you think about the kind of messaging that Avi Lewis has, it is clearly designed for more of an urban progressive kind of audience. And you see just 12% among the 18 to 34s, which is not going to do it. Just 7% in urban areas, and among 55 and older, 3% support for the NDP. So we haven't seen that kind of bump yet, at least from Léger. I think you could argue with some of the other polls that we've seen some better numbers for the NDP, but it's not clear to me that we've actually seen a change in the numbers.
No.
I think we talked about it last week. ECOS had a higher number for the NDP than we've seen for a while, but it was actually down because the previous poll had him at like 15. And then you saw a big bump from the Angus Reid Institute. But that can keep going back and forth, and a lot of it was concentrated in BC. So not seeing much of a lift off there. And as you said, that remains bad news for the Conservatives because 37%, even if that is on the higher end of the polls that we've seen lately, it still isn't good enough when the NDP is at 6%. And, that 37 for the Conservatives, to me, it's worth chatting about a little bit because it is on the higher end, right? So I do think that you could see, I think we've seen some abacus numbers that are similar in that sense. But if you're a Conservative and you're looking at some of the polls lately and you see a 32 or a 33, that's not good, right?
No,
that's
hard.
Andrew Scheer got 34 and Aaron O'Toole got 33% in the previous elections. But when you see a 37, you might be like, well, a couple points more. We're, a margin of error. We're back where we were in the last election. 40% is all you need to win normally. But I think for the Conservatives, I would look at this 37 that we see in the Léger and think, this is the higher end of where things are, maybe not where we actually are.
Only 18% in Quebec for the Conservatives in the Léger poll. 40% in Ontario. Now, that's pretty good for the Conservatives, but it's down from the election and it's trailing the Liberals by 11 points. There's no path to Conservative comeback if you're trailing the Liberals by double digits in Ontario. Now, I know we've seen some wonky numbers out of Alberta since the new year. We've seen some close races. Now it seems to have widened again. Maybe it was just a little phase, a little winter discontent in Alberta. But still, in this poll, Mark Carney, the Liberals, are at 41% in Alberta. Now, granted, it's a small sample. But if smaller samples were the issue, we would see the numbers fluctuating every which way. In Alberta, it seems that there's like this number around 35% of Albertans who would support Mark Carney, sometimes a little higher, sometimes a little lower. And that's the highest we've seen on a regular basis. Now, for those who don't remember, Mr. Carney and the Liberals had 28% of the vote in Alberta last year in the election, and that was the highest since you have to go back to the Trudeau-mania of 68 to find such a number in the popular vote. So, yeah, the Liberals are up, Conservatives are down, and it seems to be pretty much everywhere. There's no like hotspot of Liberal support or Conservative slide. It seems to be a bit everywhere. Now, I was told by many observers and journalists who called on me and says, "Hey, what's going on in Atlantic Canada? We are used to have a 15, 20 point lead for the Liberals, and in this poll, it's 45 Liberal, 41 Conservatives." And obviously, if that was translated to the ballot box, it would make Atlantic Canada much more competitive. But it's fewer than 100 respondents. So this could be an example of a sample size issue. We'll see in future polls. You just mentioned, and before I want to, because I have my train of thought this morning, I went to bed late and I don't want to lose it. The 18 to 34, Eric. So now I have a rolling average going on 338 on the age breakdown. And here's what I have right now, of course, with uncertainty. There's une fourchette, as we say, right? I have the Liberals at 41, Conservatives at 36, and the NDP at 13. This is the younger crowd. The Conservatives at 36 among the younger crowd, it's really good historically, but it's still second place, and the NDP is barely into double digits. And if we look at the older crowd, the 55 and over, I have the Liberals leading by 23 points on average, and the NDP is behind the Bloc Québécois across the country. There are many layers to this landscape here, but as long as the NDP is down among young people and the Liberals are leading among older people, they will continue. The Liberals will continue to be dominant in the projections.
Since if you still have the graphic in front of you,
I do.
Because I don't have it. Has there been any shift recently, or has it been, has it been mostly following along the lines of the broader shift where we saw the Liberals really move ahead in February into their position where they are now, whereas before, they had a lead that was similar to where it was in the last election? Has there been, we've seen a lot of attempts by, I think, the Liberals to try to appeal a bit more to younger voters. We had the recent trades program that they put in the new the spring economic statement thing. So I think that there does seem to be like an evolving fight for that younger vote, and I'm just curious if you can discern any recent trends, or is things holding steady?
No, the answer is simple, and it's no. When you look at the curve among 18 to 34-year-olds, it's been pretty much constant since last year's election. And that includes the surge that we saw from the Liberals starting in mid-January. Among younger people, it's been flat. If the surge that we saw for the Liberals going from a statistical tie with the Conservatives to a double-digit lead, it was mostly among the older crowd, among the 55 and over. So if we look at the new year, the Liberals were leading by 15 points, 47 to 32 among the older crowd, and now, as I said, it's 23 points. If you look at the 18 to 34, it was a statistical tie between the Conservatives and the Liberals. I have it here 39-38, and now the Liberals are leading by 5 points. So small fluctuations, the NDP is flat among young people. So not a good news for the NDP, because they have to. I know he just got there, Monsieur Lewis just got there, but you want to see some movement eventually, right? Maybe it's this fall. But so far, we cannot say he has had a leader's bump that we so often see when we have a new leader.
Yeah, well, I looked at it more detailed in the Nanos poll, because it has the best prime minister question as always.
Yeah.
And last week we chatted that Carney had dropped to 49.8. We had the over-under of when would be the last time he was over 50. He's back over 50, so the clock restarts on our over-under on there. He was at 51, Poilievre was at 24, and Lewis was at 5. So I looked at the last Nanos poll before Lewis became leader, because now we're in an entirely Lewis sample for Nanos, since it's a 4-week rolling poll, and it has had a jump. It was a statistically significant jump, but only because the numbers were so small, that he more or less went from, if I'm not mistaken, 2.6 to 5.1 on. That was the biggest shift that we saw. And Carney has come down in that poll over the last 5 months by about 3 points. But the number of people who said they're unsure has also dropped by about 2 or so, if I'm not mistaken. And we see teeny little bumps for Poilievre, a small bump for even Blanchette and May and Bernier. So it's actually hard to pull the numbers out of where the things are moving around. Did Lewis get a tiny little bump because the unsures became sure, or did he get a tiny little bump from a Carney small drop? But it is so small.
It's so small.
That it's almost not worth thinking about. So it does kind of suggest that anything that we see from the NDP in the next year, the next couple of years, is going to be because of the work that's being done now. It's not because of any sort of honeymoon, new leader. There was absolutely, it seems to me, no bump.
No.
But that doesn't mean that, you can't build something. But I think that what happened here was that you had, as we saw from polls before the leadership came to a close, Lewis wasn't very well known. And when you don't have a very well known leader who becomes a leader, you don't get a honeymoon, because it's like that old Toronto Star headline, Joe Who, when Joe Clark won the PC leadership. If people don't know who you are, they're not going to suddenly love you, right?
No.
So we'll have to see if the work that Lewis is going to be doing over the next little while is going to lift the numbers at all.
We had almost a full week of coverage without much drama on the Conservative side. And I say this not to mock them, but it seems that since Poilievre had his leadership review in January, and then we had floor crossers, and then we had the Carney majority, and then we have the by-elections where the Conservatives did very poorly, it seems that almost every week we had bad news for the Conservatives and a re-questioning of Poilievre's leadership. This seems to have been quelled for now. And I cannot understand why. I'm not saying there's nothing happening behind the scenes, but there doesn't... I mean, I think there's some MPs and some Conservative partisans are a bit resigned to the fact that Poilievre is going to be leader for better or for worse in the coming months. The numbers are not great for the Conservatives, but we know there's something big to build on here. It's just that Mark Carney, again, leading by 27 points in the preferred PM tracker, is huge. And the numbers you just mentioned about Monsieur Lewis, the NDP is at 11% in an annual poll, but Lewis is the choice of 5%. Who do you think these NDPers think the preferred PM is? It's probably most of them are still on the side of Mr. Carney. Mr. Carney will have many challenges ahead. Again, we talked about this negotiation of CUSMA, the U.S.-Canada relations. The tariffs are still hurting Canada's economy. We're a bit saved right now with the high price of gas. It's tough on consumers, but it's good for governments, including the provincial government in Alberta, who's raking some money there. But we know it's not going to last. I wonder what breaks it. What breaks this trend that we've seen for the past 6 to 8 months?
Well, it's interesting because you said, it seems like it's been a relatively quiet week for the Conservatives. I think it's in part because of the spring economic statement put a lot of focus on the government. They had their sovereign wealth fund thing that came out. They had different projects that coming out. And so the focus, I think, has been much more on the Liberals lately. And, there's been, I'd say, mixed reaction to some of the stuff that has come out. Lots of questions around the sovereign wealth fund, how it actually works, how it works when you're not in a surplus situation, you build a wealth fund. So I wonder if we're in a position, a time now where more of the focus is going to turn back to the Liberals because they're a majority, I wonder if that kind of extra scrutiny might start chipping away at stuff. But no indication of it just yet. Leger had a 2-point drop in satisfaction or approval for Carney, but we could see a 2-point increase next month, and it's all just noise. But we'll see what's going to happen with that. But one thing's clear is that both the Conservatives and the Liberals are still able to raise a lot of money.
Oh, yes.
So we had some new fundraising numbers coming out for the first 3 months of the year. By my calculation, aside from the first quarter of 2025, which was the run-up to the election, this is the most money parties have raised in a beginning of a year ever. Wow. So they're still kind of have those wheels pretty well greased when it comes to raising money. 9.4 million for the Conservatives, 6.8 million for the Liberals, 1.7 million for the NDP, which sounds low, but is actually not too bad for them, and 330,000 for the Bloc Québécois. I find the fact that the Conservatives are no longer having a 5, 6, 7 million advantage over the Liberals every 3 months. I think that's pretty important, because the difference between having that much more money and having just this much more money, which isn't that much, I think is it's like with polling. Once you get to a certain amount of a sample or a certain amount of money,
it doesn't change.
Diminishing returns after that.
Yeah. You just said in $1.7 million for the NDP, they were in the leadership race. That helps. That helps a lot.
Yeah, and the candidates raised another 1.5 over that period.
Yeah.
Which I think it was 25% or something that was kicked back to the party. So a nice little bonus for them there.
For all the talk about Monsieur Poilievre doesn't have a grasp on his party, 9.4 million in 1 quarter for the Conservatives. This guy is a fundraising machine. The Conservatives are always good in fundraising, like just say historically, right? They're always in first place, and sometimes we make too much of a deal that, the Conservatives raised a lot of money, that means they must be popular. Well, they are popular, but they're also really good at raising money throughout the country. It's still a 2.5 million advantage for the Conservatives. You said diminishing returns. I remember I spoke to a Conservative a few months ago about the fundraising. And he said, we almost had infinite money for the campaign in 25 and we still lost. So it's how you spend your money, but not just how you raise it, but they're still able to raise it, even though their poll numbers haven't been that great in the first quarter, at least.
Yeah. During an election campaign, everybody can only spend as much as they're allowed to, right? And you can borrow the money to make up the difference, which, the NDP had to do, and the Liberals would have taken out a loan. I wonder if the Conservatives did. I can't recall. I don't remember seeing if they did. But, it's the between election time when you can spend as much as you want. And the Liberals, the Conservatives spent tons of money in 2024, so much more than the Liberals. And maybe it contributed to their rise in the polls. Maybe it also contributed to the future undermining of the NDP.
Yeah.
But in the end, it's a portion of everything, right?
Yes.
When the mood changes, when the discussion changes, ads and all the money you can throw at it. It's like yesterday's thing. Pierre Poilievre had this, like we recently saw, he had a new ad campaign, $1 million ad campaign from what I've heard. Kind of touting him as a leader, as a hardworking person, and all this, kind of doing that kind of pivot reframing of him as a future prime minister, and then kind of dropped it and moved on. Right? Yeah. They've moved back to the more pugnacious kind of approach that Poilievre has had. So I guess when you have that much money, you can just throw it away on an ad that you abandon or an approach that you abandon. But now they don't have as much money to throw away as they did before, at least when it comes to a comparison with the Liberals, which is interesting because the Liberals under Trudeau, in the early years, they're pretty good at raising money, but over the last few years, they became just not very good, trailing the Conservatives by huge amounts, 25 million a year. They've got a little bit more of their game back, even if they can't entirely catch up to the Conservatives.
More trial balloons. That's what money buys you. More trial balloons. So, Eric, we have a leadership race going on right now, an important one, out west in British Columbia. And you wrote about this. We had fresh numbers on the BC Conservative leadership race. What did you find in your little research, and what should we look forward to in the next 3 weeks? Yes, 3 weeks.
Yeah, it's May 30th. This is a race that's kind of hard to call. There's now just 5 candidates, and there does seem to be a bit of a what's it called, a peloton of it's the
peloton.
Anyway, a group of candidates that are kind of all bunched together.
Yes.
So it's hard to call, and it doesn't seem like it'll be a first ballot win, or maybe even a second ballot. Probably will require the elimination of everybody, except the last 2. And we had 2 different polls we talked about last week, how we wanted to see some polls. And
thank you. We
got a poll from Research Co. It generally showed that British Columbia still don't know who these people are. It was about like 60% or so on average, if you look at the different candidates, who people didn't either have an opinion of them or literally said, I don't know who this is. So you would end up getting like somewhere between 18 to 20% of British Columbians would either have a favorable or an unfavorable view without any real strong, skew one side or the other. And it's the kind of numbers where if you put our names, I'm not sure if you get different results, right? I think people say whether they like or dislike a name based on the name sometimes, if they don't even know who they are. And even among Conservative voters, still really low recognition. And not strong views either way. So it's hard to call it from that angle. But we saw a poll from Palace Data, which was done for the Caroline Elliott campaign, which got to take with that into consideration.
Absolutely.
But it was actually done of members, because Elliott's campaign, like all the campaigns, would have the membership list. Palace was able to poll from the list, get a sample of 1,200 members of the party, and weighted it by riding or region, because the leadership race is going to have that kind of weighted ballot. And found something that's it put a little bit more contours. Had 31% for Caroline Elliott, 24% for Carrie Lynn Finlay, 18% for Ian Black, 9% for Peter Millibar, and 7% for Yuri Fulmer. Do you have any thoughts on some of the numbers we've seen out of the BC Conservative leadership race?
I really thought that Monsieur Millibar and Fulmer would do a bit better than this. Single digits is kind of strange. But again, there have been so little data coming out of this race. You mentioned the Research Co numbers. They basically all have the same favorable or unfavorable, even among Conservative voters. Madame Elliott is higher, but marginally higher considering the sample size. When you have a 5-horse race and the leader of that race is barely in the 30s, unless there is an anybody but and there could be an anybody but, maybe anybody but Elliott is going to build up. But I don't think we can put a label of clear favorite on anybody. Yes, Madame Elliott is leading in that poll, but she doesn't have 30%. She doesn't have a third of the membership. So if there is a build-up against her, she could even finish third in that race. This is going to be. I mean, this is going to be fascinating to see the numbers. There's a feeling in recent leadership elections that we know who's going to win.
Right.
But maybe it's going to be a little tighter. I remember Pablo Rodriguez in Quebec City last June. We all knew he was going to lead, but in the end it was 52-48. It was really close. But in the end, the favorite won. And in this side, as the favorite should be Elliott with those numbers, I'm not so sure that she would be able to get second place votes as much as she needs there.
Yeah, it's kind of all kind of muddled. Palace did ask who would be her second choice, and
it wasn't
Black
clear.
had the most second choices. He had 19%, but Elliott, Finley, Fulmer, and Millibar were all between 10 and 12%. In terms of being a second choice. So you don't really see a clear kind of progression. Now, there does seem to be some candidates that are grouped together from the second choice ballots. You can kind of see that the Ian Black and the Peter Millibar voters have a lot of the same pool. Like a lot of the Millibar voters put Black second, and a lot of the Black voters put Millibar second. Elliott had also some good support among Ian Black. But then you had Carrie Lynn Finley and Yuri Fulmer, who seem to be the ones who overlapped on that side. So it does seem it will kind of matter who ends up being eliminated at each step.
Oh, yeah.
Which is really kind of interesting, right? Because if, let's say Millibar, let's just, just spitball in here. If Millibar got eliminated first, his support would largely go to Black, or a lot of it would, and maybe that would push Black ahead of Finley, and so Finley becomes the next person who could be eliminated. Or if it's Fulmer, then that could push Finley, further ahead, maybe even ahead of Elliott. There's lots of different dynamics at play. My kind of read suggests that Elliott should be still seen as the favorite.
Oh, with a lot of confidence, I can hear. Yeah.
Yeah, but when you kind of play out these scenarios based on these numbers, I wouldn't be surprised if the last ballot is 52-48.
Yeah.
With either Elliott, Finley, or Black, I think seem to have the inside track on these. But I really appreciate seeing a membership poll.
Yes.
And none of these numbers don't make any. They're not they're plausible, so it adds a bit of confidence to it.
It's also let's think strategy here. So this was done the poll was conducted by Palace Data, which had a great record in BC last time around, but it was leaked by the Elliott campaign. So you leak a poll where you show, you're leading, but aren't you giving your opponents the recipe to beat you? I don't understand why this was leaked, obviously. I mean, if Elliott was at 45 in this poll, I says, okay, she wants to show that she is the clear favorite, and that if you don't want a fractured party, because we will have an election in BC in a short time, well, not in a short time, but soon, and we'll talk about the horse race numbers from the Angus Street Institute there. But you're basically showing the roadmap to beat you. Why would you leak this? I don't understand.
Well, maybe it's just first of all, we don't really know, I guess, the context. Palace did put it on their website, so I mean, they must have had permission to do it. But maybe it was like a post leak thing. I don't know. But
I'll ask.
I mean, if Elliott is perceived as the front runner, which it seems to be that she's perceived to be the front runner, but not like a clear front runner, right? Like a lot of the debate stuff is often focused on Elliott, for example.
Yeah.
But I think signaling to your voters that, hey, we're leading, but you really do need to vote is not a bad thing, right?
Yeah, but you just put a target on your back. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
It's if you want to get out your vote and you want to mobilize your base, maybe, but you're mobilizing other bases too. I don't know. I find this very strange. if we can just switch here and talk about the provincial numbers in BC. So the Angus Reid Institute, Eric, released its latest BC poll, and it showed the Conservatives leading by 10 points in British Columbia over the incumbent NDP. We've known from reports and also from other pollsters that the BC NDP and Monsieur Eby, the premier there, they have had a tough winter and spring, to say the least. And although other firms such as Palace and Léger did see a tightening, they still have a small lead for the NDP, not the Angus Reid Institute. Last poll that the Institute released, it was in March, it had a 2-point Conservative lead, and now it's a 10-point Conservative lead. And I did a little modeling here. If it's a tie, as Angus Reid says here, in Metro Vancouver, and the Conservatives are leading by wide margins in the Fraser Valley and the interior, and you can imagine like Surrey and Abbotsford and all. This is going to be a clear majority for the Conservatives, like not even close. We're used to close BC elections. This would not be close if it holds. I mean, we'll need more data, but the Angus Reid Institute is based in BC, and I see no reason to doubt these numbers. What do you make of them, Eric?
Yeah, it's largely about the NDP, right? Because 46% for the Conservatives, I think they got 43 in the last election.
42.
So that's that doesn't suggest that they're taking off, getting a bunch of new voters. It more or less means they're getting their chunk plus a few extra voters. But it's the NDP that's down a lot. They've lost support to the Greens, it would seem. They're down 6 points since the last poll. And it kind of follows. It's been as you mentioned, a rough time for the Eby government over the last little while over the DRIPA legislation, where at first Eby was going to put forward legislation related to it that he was going to make as a confidence vote. And then some of his own caucus members were upset about this. And he said, well, okay, now it's not a confidence vote. And then it was, now we're not going to do it at all. So I think we've seen a lot of a kind of weakness from him on this, like showing that he's not very confident on the issue. And the poll found that British Columbians, by a more than 2-to-1 margin, think that Eby's government has not done the right balance between property rights and Indigenous treaty rights, which is the kind of the debate over the DRIPA stuff. So it does seem like this has really hurt the NDP, and it's been a huge focus of the Conservative leadership race.
Yeah.
Which, from polling, suggests it's not a top issue for British Columbians, even if this does seem to have driven some of this drop in support for the NDP. But it does seem to be a big issue for Conservative Party members. And the fact that the Greens kind of picked up a lot of the NDP vote, though, suggests that, it might be people just being fed up with the NDP rather than enamored with the Conservatives. But it's a prize now. And
yes, it is.
The NDP has a 1-seat majority in the legislature. Next election is not till 2028, but I mean, you could even imagine the government falling. Although I don't know if the Greens want to exchange the NDP for the Conservatives. But hey, if they can pick up some extra seats, maybe they won't care.
Maybe because 13% would be a good. They had 8%, and you're right, 43% for the Conservatives in the last election. I had 41 in my mind, but again, BC elections have been so close of late.
Yeah.
All right, Eric, I think it's time for this week's quiz. So, just so that people are aware, for those who are not members of the Numbers podcast, on Monday, Eric and I did a quiz show, and it was kind of fun. And Eric, on a rare thing, Eric quizzed me. And I pulled out okay because he went in my area of expertise, more hockey than politics, but it was a mix of hockey and politics, and it was a lot of fun. If you want to listen to that episode, thenumberspod.ca, we do special episode almost every week for our members. But this week's quiz, so I want to preface this by saying that, again, I said that last week, Eric, but I received a lot of submissions for quiz ideas and quiz questions and people who make up quiz so I can quiz you. Some of them are really hard, and some of them...
You gave me a couple of them on the episode
the Newfoundland one was kind of hard. And there was one quiz that I remember I read the email. I wanted to reply. I forgot about it, and now I lost it. I must have erased it by accident or something. But I remember the idea. So if you listen to this and say, hey, this was my idea, let me know so I can give you credit because I forgot. I lost the email. So I built this little quiz. It's about prime ministers. It's just about prime ministers. It's trivia about prime ministers. So, Eric, are you ready for this week's numbers quiz?
Sure. Do I have a goal? Do I have a bar?
Okay, hang on here. There's 14 points to be accumulated here. So I think gold would be 12 points. Then silver 11, then bronze 10. I must say, though, that I'm not 100% sure. I'm like 95% sure that I'm not missing stuff from this quiz, but you will probably help me. So
I'll let you know, yeah.
You'll let me know, yes. Absolutely. And our listeners will let us know. Okay. Eric, let's start. Number 1. In my little research, meaning Googling, Wikipediaing, and looking at the Library of Parliament, I found 4 prime ministers who, at the time of their prime ministerships, were not members of Parliament. Now, Mark Carney would be on this list, but he became a member of Parliament, so I'm excluding it. I'm saying that during their whole prime ministerships, they were not members of Parliament. 4 names. Go ahead. 1 point per name. And you're allowed a free strike here.
Oh, that's interesting. Okay. I think, I'm pretty sure Mackenzie Bowell was in the Senate. And I think John Abbott was as well. Am I on my card?
Are we going name by name? We could. I didn't think this through. Okay, are you punching these names?
Yeah, well, Abbott for sure. And I think
Abbott is correct, by the way. You get 1 point.
Is Bowell?
Mackenzie Bowell is correct. He was a senator for Ontario, actually. Yeah.
So there's 2 more. Thompson was an MP, I'm pretty sure. Was Tupper an MP? Yes, because... yes, he was, but he never actually was in the House, I don't think. So going past that... I had 2 more.
Yep.
I think John Turner wasn't an MP when he won the leadership in 84. And then he ran in the 84 election and became an MP then. So I think Turner would be the 3rd.
Turner is correct. That's 3 points. You need 1 more. And you're allowed a free strike.
I can't imagine who it would be. Campbell was an MP. I'm trying to think of the short-lived prime ministers. I don't know, so I'm going to guess because it's the only one I could think of that would still be him would be Charles Tupper.
Charles Tupper is correct.
Oh,
yes, he was not a member of Parliament during his very short stint as prime minister. So you get 4 out of 4. Congratulations, that's really
all right.
Good.
That was a bit of a jog. Okay.
Nice pull. Okay. Here's the one that I'm not 100% sure because I was running out of time and maybe I'm missing, but we'll see, okay? So during their entire political careers, these men who served as prime ministers were once elected as members of parliament in ridings from Nova Scotia. I counted 4 of them.
Okay.
So not necessarily during their prime ministership, but they, during their careers, have been members, a member of parliament for ridings in Nova Scotia. I counted 4 prime ministers.
Okay. Brian Mulroney would be 1 because he won a by-election in Nova Scotia.
Do you remember the riding, just for fun?
It was Central Nova.
Yes, it was Central Nova.
Okay.
You get the point. All right.
Robert Borden was a Halifax MP when he was prime minister.
Yep.
John Thompson was also a Halifax MP, if I'm not mistaken.
You mean John Sparrow David Thompson?
Yes.
Do you call it John? You don't say Sparrow? It's such a great name, Sparrow. Yes, that is correct. You got 3.
Okay, and the 4th would be, I'm wondering if it's someone who got their. Okay, wait. I got to think about this. Chrétien was in Beau Séjour when he was I had to go there for a minute. So that was in New Brunswick.
Not in Nova Scotia, absolutely.
Turner would never have been in Nova Scotia. Campbell, no. Mulroney, I said Mulroney. Trudeau, no. Pearson, no.
It's a multiple choice question.
Yeah. Saint Laurent, no. King. King was always jumping around. I think actually, though, it's going to end up being John A. Macdonald. I think he got elected to a bunch of different ones. I'm going to say it was John A. Macdonald.
And that's a strike.
Oh.
You're allowed to have one strike here, but not two.
Then with my last one, I'll choose... Tupper. Tupper was.
There you go. You got It's a Charles Tupper heavy quiz today.
Yes.
Consecutive questions.
Yeah,
So
sorry. Yeah, of course. He was from Nova Scotia. Yeah. Okay.
So you get 8
you
points.
You threw me when you said he wasn't an MP as Prime Minister, but anyway.
All right. Eric, I'm not telling you how many names you have to name. You have to know.
Okay.
Of all of Canada's Prime Ministers, name those who were born in the 1920s.
In the 1920s.
That's right.
Okay, so it wouldn't be Diefenbaker or Pearson. Trudeau was born, I think, in 1919.
Ooh.
So does not count.
Does not count.
Clark was 39 when he won in 79, which meant he was born in 1940. Mulroney would have not been in his 60s. I'm going to say 0. There were none.
You're going to say 0?
Yeah.
And that's wrong, my friend.
Oh.
There is one man born in the 20s.
Who was it?
His name is John Turner.
Ow. I didn't think about Turner.
So you have 8 points out of 9. Okay. Of all of Canada's prime ministers, name those who represented ridings from Manitoba during their prime ministership.
During their prime ministership?
Yes.
Okay. Well, there's Arthur Meehan. He was the MP for Portage la Prairie. And
you punch that in?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, and that's correct. You get a point.
Yeah. I think that's it. Is that it? Am I missing one? You're making me doubt things now. I'm going to say that's it. I don't think there was another one.
That's the whole point, my friend.
Yeah.
And
just Meehan.
And you are correct. This is it. Arthur Meehan is still to this day the only one who represented Manitoba. Do you remember his writing? Did you say it?
Yeah, it was Portage la Prairie, wasn't
yes,
it?
Yes, it is. Portage la Prairie. Exactly. Okay. Now, this one is a little harder. It's also a list.
Wait, I got a bronze, right?
Now you have 10?
Yeah. No,
yeah.
wait.
You have 10. Yeah, 10 out of 11? Yeah. No, you missed.
Said 10 for bronze.
No, you have 9.
11.
You have 9. You got 4, 4, 0, and 1. So you have 9. Okay. So you need one more point for bronze. And if you sweep here, you get gold. So of all of Canada's prime ministers, name those who were elected to a provincial legislature before becoming PM of Canada.
Okay. You're not counting like McDonald, right, in the pre-Confederation?
I am not.
Okay. Oh, it was Mackenzie. He might have had a dual mandate.
Dual mandate.
I know. Okay,
yeah.
So. Oh, that's going to trip me up. Okay. I think Thompson he was a premier. He was the only one who was actually a premier. So John Thompson would be 1.
And that's correct. You get bronze. David Sparrow Thompson.
David. Yeah, I'm gonna just call him David Sparrow now, and just that'll be it. Okay, why don't I go backwards? Carney wasn't. Trudeau wasn't. Harper wasn't. God. Martin Chrétien. Campbell. Oh, Campbell was, I think. Kim Campbell. I think she was a Socrat.
Yes, she was.
I'll punch her in.
Absolutely. Yes, she was.
Okay. Mulroney wasn't. Clark wasn't. Trudeau wasn't. Turner wasn't.
To my count, you need 2 more. But maybe I missed some, but to my count, you need 2 more.
2 more? All right. Pearson wasn't. Diefenbaker. I don't know if he ever actually won. He ran, I think. He was the leader of the Saskatchewan Conservatives at one point. But
he has a long list of defeats before he eventually won, huh? Yeah.
So it wasn't Diefenbaker. Saint Laurent wasn't. King wasn't. Bennett was. Ooh, Bennett. Bennett was. Yes, Alberta?
You punch that in?
I'm going to punch that in.
R.B. Bennett in Alberta and also in the Northwest Territories, but Alberta gets you the point. So now you have, to my count, you have silver now, and if you get the last one, you get gold.
Okay, one more. Meehan wouldn't have been. Borden wouldn't have been. Laurier. You told me in an earlier quiz that he was, and I was surprised, I think. So I'm going to say Wilfrid Laurier was the last one.
That quiz saved you, my friend, because you didn't know that Wilfrid Laurier had been a member of the Legislative Assembly of Quebec before the quiz. You see how we learn together? Yes, Wilfrid Laurier is the answer. And the only other one that I could find was Charles Tupper, but it was pre-Confederation, just like Johnny MacDonald. So you got it. You got gold, my friend.
Yay!
Beautiful. This was not easy.
No, that was a good one. I like that.
Wow. Again, some of these questions were inspired by a listener whom I lost the email, and I'm sorry. So shout out to me if you can, because I'd like to thank you for your submission. But congratulations, Eric. Another gold on the quiz. Maybe I should put in some hockey in there
I know some hockey.
Yeah, you know some hockey? This is history of the first Senators. But yeah, we'll see. Good job, Eric.
All right, let's do the number of the week. Why don't you go first?
The number of the week, I want to go back to the Léger poll. We've seen some strange numbers out of British Columbia. And again, we know that the sample size is usually between like 150 respondents or maybe a little more. But that Léger poll has a 20-point lead. Was it 20 points or was it more than that? It was at least 20 points. It was 21 points ahead for the Liberals in British Columbia, federally, of course. That's not normal. And the Angus Reid Institute, in its previous federal poll, had a tie in British Columbia with an NDP surge. So, again, people trust the average. I'm not saying that Léger is wrong. I'm not saying the Angus Reid Institute is wrong. But BC is a place that historically, in recent years at least, has fluctuated a lot in the numbers. Trust the average. I have a small lead right now for the Liberals in British Columbia. Trust the average.
All right. My number of the week will be 2.9 million.
Okay.
This is the number of names that was on the Alberta electors list that was leaked publicly. So the story is pretty complicated, but seems to be more or less that the Centurion Project, which is a third-party group advocating for independence for Alberta, obtained the electors list, it seems, from the Republican Party of Alberta, and had it publicly accessible. And the electors list is a hugely kind of confidential, protected list that is provided to parties. It contains your name, your address, sometimes phone number, things like that. And so this means that there's lots of people, regular people in Alberta, but also people who, former politicians, judges, doctors, lawyers, where their names, their addresses, and all this has been publicly leaked. So this is just a huge privacy breach.
Yeah.
It's real snafu, I think, by Elections Alberta to begin with, because they were warned about this about a month before it became public, and now the RCMP is apparently going to be looking into it. So it's just a terrible kind of event that happened here, and it just kind of shows that we really do need to make sure that we have good protections for people's privacy. Parties often exempt themselves from a lot of these laws, which seems problematic to me. I know it's important for elections to be able to have these lists and to be able to do the work, but we need to make sure that people's data is protected. So I just wanted to highlight that. That's a big story out in Alberta. But if you are listening to the podcast, you know that we will always protect your data.
That's
and
right.
If you want to join our podcast, you can go
segue.
to the number. Yeah, that was a rough one. Sorry. Go to thenumberspod.ca, join the podcast, get the bonus episodes, our early and ad-free episodes every week, and our undying appreciation and love for your support. So, Philippe, that'll be it for this week. And You know, it was a rough night last night for the Canadians, but hopefully things will go better in the next few, and we'll have some good news to chat about next week.
It's a long series. Merci beaucoup, Eric. Merci beaucoup, tout le monde. Have a great weekend.